had a parent 2 days ago while I was on the phone with and go, I got really positive feedback from this school and that school. And I said, read me what they wrote. And it was fully interchangeable with the name and the club and the other than that, it was so generic that it was interchangeable. There was nothing about, hey, the way you made that tackle really impressed me. I like the way you track back and recover. Those two goals that you scored definitely are the type of goals that we could need here at XYZ at Alaska State. And we really need you as that type of player. We need that. It's none of that. It's all keep in touch with us, let us know, be sure you to send us a schedule, send us some more film. The fact is, if you're not being recruited, it means you haven't impressed.
Don Williams, welcome back to the podcast.
Thanks, Erica. It's always fun.
I can't remember the last time you've been on. I think it's been a couple of months, maybe a little longer. Do you remember?
Yeah, that sounds about right. That's probably been beginning of summer type of thing. Yeah.
Yeah, I
Yeah, it
think
has
so.
been summer, but I'm always great when I'm very happy when you reach out. I love coming on. And we were just talking about off the air. We no matter how short we think a topic might be, we always find something to share. So it's good.
Yes, there's unlimited discussion around everything college recruiting. So there's a lot we can get into today, and we're going to talk about what to do when your child is not getting any D1 offers. And those are the only schools they've wanted to go to and they've written down in their goals, but nothing's happening. So I think there's a lot we can get into with this one, Don. So maybe before we do that, can you just provide any updates that are changing in the women's college soccer game? We're recording this in November of 2025. So any changes within women's college soccer recruiting?
Nothing significant, honestly, lately. There was there was a white paper that came out, but that's not anything. I mean, I don't know if you saw it or if any of your readers saw it. The United States Soccer Federation has come in and said that they want to help save college soccer and make it better. And my response is, we have enough problems within our federation. I don't see them helping us or saving us. And that white paper is just it's a group. And when you see who it's put together by, who's on the board, you guys can Google it, white paper, USSF, college soccer, and you can see it's three or four marketing guys, somebody from Wasserman, who's a big agency, and the suggestions for women's college soccer and men's college soccer are two different suggestions. The men's game still talking about wanting to go to a year-round model, which the cynic in me says it's never going to happen. I just know ADs well enough and administrators well enough. And, soccer is still depending on the poll, the fourth or fifth most popular sport in the US. So it's not like it's American football or basketball or even baseball. And so I don't see them spending an extra, $1 million or so to run a sport that they don't care about. I think Olympic non-revenue sports are sports that in general, this applies to the men's and women's game, just they don't rock the boat, don't rock the boat. As I have heard ADs say before, as a soccer coach, you're lucky to have a job. Just sit down, shut up, and do the job. Stop trying to rock the boat. We don't need to make it better. It's fine as it is. So on the women's side, Division One, as we all know, has its own rules committee for women's soccer, and then there's a Division One committee for men's soccer. And then Division Two has its own committee for women's soccer and its own committee for men's soccer. So the rules can be different in Division One and Division Two for men's soccer and women's soccer. And I don't see any significant changes coming on the women's side for Division One or Division Two in this coming year, um, other than lawsuits. I mean, lawsuits can change that quickly, as we saw, players getting an extra year of eligibility if their eligibility would have run out this past season because they had used one of those eligibility seasons in junior college. Then this year only, they got a 1 year exemption. And that was kind of to stave off some of the lawsuits that were happening. But now, I'm sure more lawsuits will come but nothing significant on the horizon.
What about international recruits? Because I get asked about that a lot with are these top Division 1 teams in the women's game looking for more international players now, or will they in the future? Because I've been watching a lot of the D1 women's season and I'm seeing a ton of girls from other countries.
Yeah, well, and it's always a touchy one. I mean, I can understand both sides of the argument as far as a concern. From a pure soccer coaching standpoint, let's address that first. It's legal to recruit players from other countries. We accept millions of students from other countries into American institutions. American institutions like that because they're usually full pay or close to full pay. You can't tell a set of people, you can come to our school, but now we're going to discriminate against you as to what activities in our school you're allowed to participate in or not. So you can't say you can't be in the chess club, you can't be in the whatever Young Republicans, you can't be in the whatever club organization, and soccer comes under the student activities area. Football, baseball, basketball, sports are student activities. So you can't tell somebody you can come to our school, but you can't participate in our activities. That was challenged at the junior college level about, I want to say maybe 5 years ago now. Junior colleges tried to restrict the number of internationals per team, and that was challenged in a court and they lost and they backed out real quickly. So I think that that precedent would hold up to the 4 year schools too. So that's that issue. Um, the next issue would be, can you restrict scholarships to international players? Kind of sort of already do that now. So I'm assuming that if a school were to decide to do that, that would be cool. Good luck hiring a coach if you tell a coach, "Hey, coach, you have to win. You're going to be fired if you don't win, and you don't have full control all over the players that you're allowed to recruit." Okay, so if you do that, you're going to have a problem um, in getting the coaches that you want. So I'm not sure. I'm not sure anything's going to change anytime soon on the international recruits. On the women's side, it's about 15%, roughly, might be 17 now, percent of players internationally that have come in and taken college roster spots. On the men's side, it's growing. It's about 34%. On the women's side, I really wouldn't be concerned if I was a parent about too many internationals coming in and not leaving a lot of American spots because there is a shortage of quality female players in the nation and in the world to fill all of the college roster spots out there. I find that on the women's side, more than on the men's side, good quality players deciding they're done with soccer. They don't want to continue in college. On the men's side, that's less likely to happen. Again, anecdotally, but experientially too, from my standpoint. After 22 years coaching, I coached both men and women, and uh, yeah, I mean, even guys that weren't going to get much playing time liked to just be part of the team. They just wanted to come in and continue to play. Where more often on the women's side, I would even recruit players and said, "Look, I'm just done. I don't want to play. But you're really good. You could play Division 1. Yeah, I'm done. I don't want to play anymore." And I think that happens more on the women's side than on the men's side. So that causes a shortage. And then it's hard to find, just naturally amazing athletic women don't exist in the same numbers as naturally athletic, amazing men. Athletically, I just don't think the numbers are there. And you can tell me because you work with some really good athletes. But there's usually a bigger, quicker drop off on the women's side from the top athletes to the middle athletes to the not that athletic, but I really love my sport. That there's less of those. So I don't think I'd worry on the women's side as much as I'd worry on the men's side. That number is growing on the men's side. 15 years ago or so, Erica, 20 years ago, that there was this idea that if you were serious about soccer, you would continue your pro career path until you couldn't play anymore. That you weren't a really serious player if you were going to come to the United States and play in college. Why would you go to the United States? Their soccer's not very good. They're not serious about soccer in the country. 20 something years ago, you couldn't even find it on television. How serious could they be about it? Why would you ever go to college, which is, third or fourth tier at best? And there was that attitude. And now on the men's side, that is changing all around the world. And players are realizing not only how hard it is to play professionally and have a career, but how the American system allows them to get an education at the same time as pursuing a competitive level of soccer. So the big difference between the men and the women's side. And I think those two get conflated a lot in a lot of different areas. People confuse, they see what's happening in the men's side and they think it applies to the women's side. Same thing. And, women get recruited earlier than guys. So the guys panic as fast as the women panic, when in reality, they've got another year and a half to go before their recruiting cycle kicks in.
Yeah, that's very interesting. So, yeah, that does clear things up a little bit if people are worried on the women's side about more international players filling these rosters. But I do have a question before we get into what to do if D1 schools aren't chasing you down. What about the transfer portal? You've talked about this extensively. Any updates there in the women's game? And is it getting more competitive for a high schooler to go to a top D1 program when the coach could just have a transfer from another school? Like, fill us in on all this.
There's okay, so coaches, I just posted about this morning, and coaches have philosophical differences, and so you need to talk. I don't want to generalize and say, "Oh, college coaches think this or college coaches think that." Some college coaches would prefer and need to, depends on the pressure that they have, right? On them. If they've been coaching at a school for 3 years and they've got now the AD says, "Look, we'll give you a 1 year contract extension to try to turn this around. If you can turn it around, we'll give you a 3 year extension." That's a lot of pressure. They haven't been winning for 2 or 3 years. Then you need to win now. A freshman in general isn't going to help you win. You know, if I'm if I'm you know if I'm University of Texas, if I'm UT and I've got tons of money and I can recruit the number one player in the country and she'll start for me right away and score 10 goals for me right away, that's not the person we're talking about. There's one of those. That freshman helps. But the average freshman, in my experience, I mean, I had an All-American who played for the Ghana national team. Sherifatu Sumela was her name, and she came in and played for me for 2 years. The first 12 games of her freshman year were garbage. She was terrible. Not terrible, I shouldn't say that. By the standard of which we knew she could play, having played at the Women's World Cup, Youth World Cup level, she wasn't very good. She just looked like one of the better players in our fairly weak conference. By her sophomore year, she had figured it out and she was dominant, unstoppable, became an All-American. But wasn't that way her freshman year. So even the best freshmen can struggle. Being away from home is hard. Getting used to the new schedule is hard. Making new friends is hard. Getting used to a new coaching style is hard. Being in a we must win environment, like win or our coach gets fired, is hard. And when the coach is under pressure, the players feel it. They can't help but feel it. Even if the coach tries to relieve that, the players feel it. And if they like their coach, they feel it even more. So relying on a freshman to help us become a better team, what coaches will call an immediate impact player, is a very, very rare thing. There might be a dozen freshmen in the country, especially at the top levels, that are immediate impact players. And then at any level, it's really hard. So if the coach has a must win now philosophy, they're going to rely on a proven product. So, you know, if I'm coaching at, and I've got a couple of buddies that won't mind me throwing out names of schools, but if I'm coaching at, Baylor and Lamar University has a striker that scored, you know, you know, 14 goals for them, and I played against that kid and we had a hard time dealing with that kid, and that kid goes into the transfer portal. I know about that kid. Maybe I tried to recruit that kid, or maybe I didn't try to recruit that kid. And now I say, wow, this kid could help us. Then maybe I'm gonna consider that kid as an immediate fix to a problem that we have, right? And then we've got junior college All-American type kids. I got a client who was a junior college All-American and is, now stepped in at Sacramento State and has done very, very, very well. I think she's got like 12, 13 points for them this year. She's had a really good season, drawing a lot of attention. So, we can get an immediate impact junior college player maybe, or an immediate impact NAIA player or Division II player that's moving up, or, a Division I player that's maybe moving up in levels. So as a coach, I always say there is this pecking order. And I think that transfer players that are a proven collegiate product, are one of the top targets for college coaches. But Erica, it's kind of like choosing up players on the school ground, right? I mean, it's never the worst players that are captain. It's always the two best players that everybody says you two can't be on the same team. That's not fair. So you're the captains. And then they choose the best player in the lineup each. And they go one, 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 one. Eventually you get to the 10th best player and the 12th best player and, all the way down to the 22nd best player. And then you've got your 11v11. And it's exactly the same way in college. So the kid that I was talking about from, I don't know, you know, Alaska State University, who was an All-American and wants to transfer and can play at the Power Four level. Well, all the Power Four players are going to go after that player, or all the ones that have a philosophy of we need a transfer player like her. But only one is going to get that player. So now they go to number two.
Hmm.
And then only one is going to get that. So now we'll go to number three. And so the power fours are your captains. They get to pick first, and then the mid majors get to pick second. And then, maybe even the Johns Hopkins of the world get to pick, fourth or fifth. They get to pick pretty high in the transfer. John Hopkins won a national title 2 years ago with, I don't want to mess up the number. Maybe it was like 7 or 8 grad transfers they had brought in.
Yeah, and they all came from big Division
Division
One
One.
pro. Yeah, and then one of their leading goal scorers, I believe, came from UPenn, and she scored all their game winners to lead up to that national title game. So,
Right.
yeah,
So, they get to pick before, you know, Alaska State does. They get,
Frostburg.
yeah, they,
Yeah.
they get to pick first. And so it's a pecking order. So this kind of leads us into what we were talking about, why my kid isn't getting an offer, a Division I offer, if they are in a position where they've been, first question is, has your child been properly evaluated? You know, if you haven't been, if you're playing in, you know, if you're playing in the smallest league in Maine, so you're kind of removed way up there north of Maine. You're at the Canadian border and it's the local youth rec league. You've probably not been evaluated. Okay, so if the mountain won't come to Muhammad, then Muhammad has to go to the mountain. You've got to go become evaluated. So now, assuming you've gone to, all of the camps that you want to be evaluated, if you show up at a camp, in some level, you're being evaluated. And if at, day two of a camp, you're not been moved up in a group, that means you're not impressing. If you've not been moved in front of the head coach's eyes, you're not impressing. But if you get stuck in the third group and you score three bicycle kicks, two diving headers, four goal line clearances, five vicious tackles, um, you're being evaluated. If they like you, they'll move you up in front of the head coach. If that head coach likes you, they will begin the recruiting process. And no matter what age you're at, even if you're a freshman at a camp, if the head coach walks up to you and goes out of their way to go, you're an amazing player. You might want to think about coming to school here one day. That maybe that's all they can say because you're so young. You really can't be actively recruited yet. They don't want to. But if you're at their camp, they can talk to you. They can tell you what an amazing player you are. They can tell you, they can ask you, what are your grades? What do you want to study? If they start asking you questions like, what's your family like? They're interested in you. They're not going to spend time learning about you if they're not interested in you. You've begun that recruiting process. So if that doesn't happen, you're not being recruited. And I know kids that go to two camps, three camps to the same school because the coach will kind of sort of lead them on. The coach doesn't say, I don't want you, don't come back. The coach is never going to say that. Okay. So what is the coach going to say? The coach is going to say, send us your schedule, things like that.
Yeah.
Yeah, keep in touch. Hey, coach, do you think I could play here? Yeah, yeah, keep in touch with us. That's not being. And I had a parent 2 days ago while I was on the phone with and go, I got really positive feedback from this school and that school. And I said, read me what they wrote. And it was fully interchangeable with the name and the club and the other than that, it was so generic that it was interchangeable. There was nothing about, hey, the way you made that tackle really impressed me. I like the way you track back and recover. Those two goals that you scored definitely are the type of goals that we could, need here at XYZ at Alaska State. And we really need you as that type of player. We need that. It's none of that. It's all keep in touch with us, let us know, be sure you to send us a schedule, send us some more film. Like, dude, you just saw me for 2 days live and you need more film. I just like, what do you think I'm going to do on film that I didn't do here live in front of you? What you saw is who I am. This is the type of player that I am. Unless you're playing injured, that's another subject. And I'm sure you advise players the same thing. It's like, don't go if you're injured or go and don't play because now it's just an excuse. Oh, I was not feeling well today. I was a little sick. I was a little injured. Well, you shouldn't have been playing then. Don't do that because now it's just an excuse after the fact. But that's another topic. The fact is, if you're not being recruited, it means you haven't impressed.
Yeah. No, I think that's a really great summary. And I see this issue often where players will go to D1 camps or the same school, or they just go to the same level like 5 times. They go to 5 camps. And after each camp, it's either the silent treatment from the coach, and then the player has to email them for the feedback. Then the feedback is sent, like you said, in this generic format. Oh, yeah, you just need to work on your technical skills and playmaking and just your fitness. And it's just this vague, like no action, no, hey, like send us your schedule. And it's just very, very vague. And that means they don't want you, like plain and simple. So my next question to that, so these players go to all these camps, the same, either the same school or it's the same level, and they keep getting this vague feedback, and there's no urgency from the coach. What should they now do? Because now it's like, okay, these D1 schools aren't chasing me down and begging for me. Now what do I do? Because you don't want to go back to the same camp or the same level school that you just got rejected from. So I think this is the part where people are afraid to get real with themselves. They might have to pivot to, okay, maybe I should try some D3 camps. What do you say to that? What's the solution here if no one's getting chased down by these schools? Hey guys, just want to take a quick moment to shout out our sponsor, Simply Faster, and one of my favorite speed timing systems from them, the Freelap. I use it for my own sprint training as well as for my athletes, and they love it. It's super easy to set up, you can take it to the field on your own, and you can get accurate speed times to track your progress. Check the Freelap link in the caption below to start adding timing into your speed sessions. If you know me, you know I love my Freelap. If you're serious about speed, it's time to start timing.
Yeah, I think that's logical. Look, and I think parents listening to this will understand this really well. If you're coming out of law school and you apply to the top three law firms in New York City, right? Then maybe they're the top 10 firms in the world, and you get rejected, then maybe you should go try for a smaller law firm. Maybe you're not what those three law firms are looking for. If you go to two SEC camps and a couple of Big Ten camps and maybe even a Pac-12 camp, and nobody at those levels is actively recruiting you, then you're not at that level. One coach rejecting you, that's one thing. Two coaches from the same level rejecting you, three, four, five, six from the same level, 100% you're at the wrong level.
Yeah.
So change levels and keep changing levels until you get somebody who says yes. Then you can start moving back up again. So, you know, you know what? I mean, if you want to really do this efficiently, you can go to one or two of the Power Four camps if that's what you think you want to do. And then maybe go to the local junior college camp, see if they even want you. If they don't actively recruit you, you got a big problem. Your perception of yourself was way off. But let's assume that local junior college says, yeah, you're in. You go, okay, well, the level is somewhere between Power Four and junior college. Let's begin to narrow that in. So maybe you go to your local mid level, sixth place, fifth best Division III conference in the nation school and see what they think of you. Maybe you go to your seventh best conference, sixth place Division II school and see what they think of you. Go local, go to everything local that you can find. Go do it cheap, do it on the cheap. A lot of local schools, like your state schools, your Division III schools that have a difficult time filling their rosters, their camps can be really cheap. They can be $50 a day, $25 a day, $50 a day. And if they're local, it means you don't have to pay for, you know, for travel, right? You don't have to pay for hotels. You don't have to pay for, so do it on the cheap, see what they think of you, and keep moving. If you could get three or four offers at those levels, see what recruiting feels like at those levels. And I've got a player I'm working with right now who got a call from a school that is literally ticks nothing on his checklist. Nothing. And I said, take the call. Take the call. Get on the call with the coach. Might as well make mistakes in your recruiting phone call. Might as well look foolish. Might as well, be uncomfortable with the school you have no desire to go to. There's nothing to lose. So you kind of get used to your first, especially if you're not being recruited, which is, I think, what we're talking about, players that aren't actively currently being recruited. So at this point, 26s and 27s that are not actively being recruited, find a school that actively recruits you so you can practice. So you can get used to the kind of coaches questions asked, get used to how to interact with the coach, Get used to being recruited. It will make you more comfortable as you inch up your ladder, as you inch up your ladder
Mhm.
and talk to coaches of schools that you do want to actively recruit you. Maybe you'll be a little more relaxed with them. Maybe you'll feel a little more at ease with them so that when they actively recruit you, they, you won't feel foolish. You won't feel nervous. You'll feel comfortable and you can be more of yourself, which is all the recruiting process is, Erica. It's a getting to know you. You and I have talked about this before. It's like dating. It's getting to know you. And it as a coach, it always didn't really drive me crazy, but I tried to get players out of it as fast as possible. I could tell they were reading a list of questions that somebody told them they needed to ask. And I think, how weird would it be to go out to dinner with your somebody on your first date and have a list of questions that you're reading?
Some
And
people
it's like,
do.
they really do that?
Oh, nowadays it's crazy. There, people go into dates with checklists and do you want kids now? Do you want to get married now?
Wow, that's
Yeah, we're
super.
just different generations. It's crazy. I didn't do that to my husband, Casey, but I hear about it.
Yeah, that's wild. Look, and it should be about a getting to know you process as far as just being comfortable. I've told kids, ask coach. People love to talk about themselves. Everybody I know loves it, loves to talk about themselves. Everybody I've ever met loves to talk about themselves. Ask that coach questions. Why'd you get into coaching? Where did you go to school? How was your experience? Are you a family person? What's your, how do you integrate family with your, if you start doing that, the coach will start opening up to you and they will walk away, maybe not learning that much about you, maybe, but they're going to go, wow, what a great person. I really like this person. I don't know why we work that way, but we tend to work that way. We tend to get off the phone with somebody who we thought maybe they talked a lot, but they didn't. We talked a lot. And we go, wow, that was a really, really good conversation. So be curious, right? It's the old Ted Lasso line, you know, be curious. That as a recruit, you need to be curious about that coach. And I think you'll find your recruiting journey begins to change.
Yeah, I think that's really great advice. And just starting with what you said about how players should try a very high level, see if coaches chase them down, and if not, then off to a lower level you go. And if they don't even want you, then that's really concerning. So I think it's good to try camps of all levels. And I've had one girl who she was so set on going D1 and she went to the Bucknell camp and no feedback from the coach, nothing. I don't even think they emailed her back. But then she went to the Swarthmore camp. They loved her and they wanted to recruit her on the spot. So still a really high academic school, great D3
Very,
program, top of the Centennial Conference as well, up there with Hopkins. But the girl initially was like, I've never heard of Swarthmore before, but now I want to consider it because the campus was great, really strong academics, and that's what she wanted out of Bucknell. But the fact that it was D1, she was like, oh yeah, Bucknell's at the top. But then she gave the Swarthmore a try and got recruited. So I think it's really important for players to consider that because there's a lot of lower division schools that have other things that you like in a Division 1 program, like the academic piece, for example.
I think we've talked about this before, but one of the first podcasts that we ever did for Inside College Soccer, in fact, the very first, was Bobby Clark, who had coached at Stanford and Notre Dame and had won national championships and that's something he said that I don't know why never really clicked with me before. When I heard him say this, though, I thought that may be the most important thing I've ever heard about recruiting. You need to go where you're wanted. And it's amazing how it feels that the Swarthmore the Bucknell Swarthmore story really made me think about that. All of a sudden, when you're wanted, you start seeing things in that team, in that school that you never saw before. And it's again just like dating. When somebody adores you, when somebody really, really likes you, you tend to overlook their flaws, whatever flaws there are. And when you're really in love, you really overlook flaws. You know that now. You in case you've been married long enough now, you know that there's things that you do that bug him, and there's things that he does that bug you, but they don't bug you enough to want to leave each other. It's not a big deal. And you begin to share, and then you make little changes, I put the toothpaste tube back or the cap back on the toothpaste now after 40 years of marriage or whatever it is, right?
It's always the
Whatever bugs
toothpaste.
somebody, you go, yeah, it's not a big deal. I'll do that for you because I love you. It's not a big deal. And so you begin to change and you begin to adapt and you begin to fit in better. And it all started with being wanted.
Yeah.
So I think that's really important that players are wanted.
Yeah. And you talk about this a lot, Don. I think you said something on Facebook the other week how some players will commit to a school where, they didn't really roll out the red carpet for them, but they just, they gave them a roster spot. And then, tale as old as time, the player goes to that school and then they end up transferring and being very disappointed.
Yeah, Erica, it's all a roster spot is an extended tryout. So you you go to your whatever. Let's say you go to your ECNL events and this coach has seen your team play 3 or 4 times. Maybe he's recruiting a couple of players heavily from your team, and that was 4 tryouts that you got. Now you go to their camp and you got 2 more tryouts for 2 more days. Maybe you go to a second camp, you got 2 more tryouts for another 2 days, or another tryout for one day. You've had 8 tryouts now with that coach. And transfer portal season comes and goes, and coach doesn't have exactly what they want, but they still need 2 more roster spots filled. They say, yeah, you can come here. Maybe you even apply to the school and you get in. You say, Coach, I've applied, I've gotten in. Please, I just want to be part of the team. I'm willing to pay my dues. I've got no demands or expectations. And the coach says, fine, I'll give you a shot. You've got now 4 months to try out every single day. 4 months. If the end of 4 months, every single day, 10, let's say 10, it's 11 weeks, right? 5 days a week. You know, that's so many opportunities you've had. How many hours of tryouts now have you had? And then the coach says, yeah, I understand. We like you. I can't guarantee you you're going to play again next year. We'll try again in the spring. We'll give you a couple more games, but I don't see you developing. It may take you a couple of years. Now a player has a decision to make. Do I stick it out? Is this school important to me?
And
It was my
Dawn,
dream school. Well, your dream school you're going to stay at. But many players, their dream school meant it's my dream school if I'm playing. It's my dream school if I'm starting. Other than that, the school's not that important to me. The friendships, they're important to me if I'm playing, but if I'm not playing, their friendships aren't really that important to me. The team's important to me if I'm playing, but if I'm not playing, the team's not that important to me. If that's how you're feeling, then it is transfer time because there is no guarantee. And a lot of people will argue you only have 4 years. Or if you didn't get to play it all this year, now you got 5 years of college, which is okay. Most kids don't graduate exactly in 4 years on the nose. Many kids have 1 or 2 more classes they have to finish up in that final semester. So, most kids it's appropriate to play that 5th year. That is the rule that did not pass, by the way. There's the rumor of the 5-in-5, they were calling it. Getting rid of a redshirt year. You'll get to play for 5 years and you have 5 years to complete that. 5-5. That proposal didn't even pass at of the Division One level to allow them to vote on it in the spring. That proposal was rejected at the Division One level outright. Division Two will vote on that in the spring. The proposal was accepted. It'll be voted on in the spring. We'll see how that goes. Now, how does that work between Division One and Division Two? I don't think that Division Two will like the fact that Division One outright rejected it. I expect it to fail. But if it passes, it gets very complicated. We'll see. But yeah, sorry, that just ran through my head when you talked about where the new rule changes, because the rumor was that that rule change passed, and the rumor is also that if you play in junior college, you get 6 years of eligibility. Not true. Not true.
Interesting. Now, I want to come back to the players who get recruited at maybe a D1 school, but it's kind of just a roster spot, and the coach doesn't really promise too much playing time in the first year. And there are a lot of players that say, oh, yeah, I'm okay with that. But when push comes to shove, when they arrive on campus and the season starts, they do not like it. They're not willing to put up with it. Have you seen that a lot?
Oh yeah, I've got a saying that every recruit I've ever recruited, every recruit that I've ever worked with, not every. Some kids know and they go, look, if I don't play, I'm going to be miserable. That would have been me. That was me in college.
Yeah, same.
That was me. And I said, if I don't play, I'm going to be miserable. And there's no way I can sit the bench. That's good to know. Shakespeare said, know thyself. It's really, really, really important to know who you are, the person. But the rest of the kids say, I'm okay paying my dues. Especially if I can play at the D1 level. I'm okay paying my dues until it comes time to pay their dues. Then suddenly they're not okay paying their dues. And I explain to kids, Instagram's a big deal for a lot of kids. And I said, now imagine you don't get selected to travel. You're sitting in your dorm room and you're scrolling Instagram and you're seeing your team post pictures of team dinner, celebrating after the game, in the locker room, on the bus singing, or listening to music, you know, doing little skits, doing whatever your friends do and post on Instagram, and you're left out of all of it. So just imagine that scenario and then lay there thinking, how is that going to make me feel if that's me, if I'm left off the travel roster? So the number one thing kids have to understand is if I'm not making a travel roster, I'm really not in a coach's plans. If I'm making a travel roster, they can only travel typically maybe how many can fit on a bus comfortably in hotel rooms. So if there's two to a hotel room, each person getting their own bed, 24 kids leaves you 22 rooms. 26 kids leaves you, something like that. Maybe 26. Maybe they're traveling. I always tried for 22. That was kind of my number. I wanted to travel with a first and a second team, two deep at every position, with no drop off. That was always my goal. So somewhere around there, 24, you got to make that travel roster. So if there's 28 on a Division One roster and four are being left home, and you're one of those four, you're truly at the bottom. If you're traveling, that's your first goal. Make the travel roster. Second goal is I'm off the bench. I'm getting called in for some minutes. I'm getting called in. It might only be 5 minutes at the end of each half, but there's three kids on the bench that aren't getting called in at all. That's good. I'm ahead of them. So I'm ahead of the four at home. I'm ahead of the bottom four on the bench that aren't getting called in at all. Out of a 28-man roster, I'm in the top 20 as a freshman. That means the coach is showing some faith in you. Have some faith in the coach too. That's not the time to transfer, I don't think. If you're getting minutes, especially on a Division One roster, and my Lord, if you're on a Power Four Division One roster and you're getting any minutes at all, you know, stop feeling entitled. You're not entitled to, you got some minutes. The coach has some faith in you. This is the time to double down on your efforts. This is the time to say, okay, I finished 15th in the fitness test. Next year, I'm going to finish top 11. That's going to give coach some pause. This player worked hard enough that they moved up 4 spots, or, that they're in our top 11. When a freshman or sophomore comes in and they're top 5 in fitness, I'm going, "I'll at least give the kids some minutes. The kid's worked really hard. Let's see how the kid does." The kid worked really, really hard. And it's also going to send notice to our, you know, sophomore who came in at number 16 on the fitness test when they should be in the top 10, that you aren't entitled to a roster or to a starting spot. Because you were a starter last year doesn't mean you're going to be a starter this year. You need to work hard. I need to send that message through the team. You know, get on the wall, work on that first touch. Let the coach see you doing it. Go to the tennis courts that are public that the coach has to drive by when they drive home. When the coach is driving home, let them see you on the courts, knocking the ball around. Nothing wrong with that. Put in the work. Double down on your efforts. Fix that left foot. Whatever the issue is, fix it. Work on it. See if you can sneak from number 20 to number 15 next year. If by your sophomore year you're first off the bench, means you're virtually getting probably the same amount of minutes as most of the starters. Means you're very, very close, and maybe you sneak in a start or two against the weaker teams. Coach gives you that reward start. And then junior year, you're a starter. And then maybe senior year, you're a captain. That used to be the accepted progression of a player. Used to be. Now it's, I'm a freshman. I didn't get to start. I'm leaving.
Mm-hmm.
It's like, stop it. That's not how it works. You don't get to graduate from college and then go to work for, you know, whoever, NVIDIA, and get a corner office at $5 million with stock options next to the CEO your first day at the company. That's not how business works. You need to start at the bottom of the ladder and work your way up and show that you are a team player, not out for just you. So the one who's not starting on a D1 roster and not traveling, they're the ones that need to be worried if you're not traveling. If you are traveling, that is a little blip of faith that coach has in you. And if you're getting any minutes at all, just figure out why you aren't getting more. And it's probably because you're not good enough. It's probably because that junior and that senior and that transfer have another 50 games over you of experience at the collegiate level. It's probably that you need more experience and more time.
Mm-hmm.
I encourage you to be patient.
I love that. I think that's great advice. And is there anything else you would kind of wrap this up with in terms of our high school girls wanting to play D1 and maybe getting turned down or getting offered a roster spot, but they're not on the travel squad? What would your final advice be?
Well, if you're in high school still, you don't know any roster spot is gold nowadays, okay? So you do have to understand. Here's a great example. So one of my girls' goalkeepers that I was working with last year, we were trying to figure out where she was going to go to school and the right level for her. And I had followed her career fairly closely. I had followed her since her probably sophomore year. And she was doing very well. Uh, a very good high school aged player. At high school, she was dominant as a goalkeeper, and at ECNL, she was good. She was good, not dominant, but very good, very solid. We found her a Division 1 school that fit most, or Division 2 school, sorry, that fit most of her parameters. She went to University of Colorado, Colorado Springs, so it's a UC, which is good academic level. Colorado Springs, she liked skiing, she liked the snow, was something she was interested in the winter time. I talked to the coaching staff. They said bring her into a camp. She came into camp. They liked her. She started every minute of a freshman year, every minute. And then in the spring, She talked to the coach about transferring. They had lost a goalkeeper coach that had been a heavy influence in her choosing that school was this goalkeeper coach. They lost that goalkeeper coach. Wasn't a sign on the horizon that the school was going to find as quality of a goalkeeper coach. She wanted that. It was important to her. Talked to the coach, and the coach played her every minute of spring also, and ended up transferring to Division One. So now she's at Utah. And the Utah coach Hideki was very honest with her. He said, "You're my, we're recruiting you as a third string goalkeeper.
Mm.
That's what we're recruiting you." She says, "I'm up for the challenge. I'm up for that. I'm okay with that." And I've talked to her. She's happy there. And I talked to her parents. She's happy there. She loves the environment. And so I tell that story for these kids that aren't quite getting those D1 looks at the schools that they want. There are other pathways. If you go into the Division two level, let's say, and you are, or Division three, and you're highly successful, as she was, it says, A, I'm at least at the right level. And maybe as a freshman, because I'm starting every minute, maybe I'm better than this level. Maybe I am. There will be schools at a higher level, maybe the Division one level, good Division one level, that are interested in you. I was talking about the girl before that went to junior college and then transferred to Sacramento State Division one and is being successful. She started, I think, every minute of every game. I think she started, and she's scoring goals. So she's done the right thing. She went and proved herself. So another saying I have that if you're not willing to bet on yourself, if you're not willing to invest, and in this case we're talking about investing time, effort, and energy to prove yourself at a lower level, if you're not willing to invest on yourself and bet on yourself, then why should a coach be willing to invest in you and bet on you, right? So take the best opportunity available to you, whatever that best opportunity is. So you evaluate all of your offers. So you've gone to junior college camps and you've gone to some NAIA camps and you've gone to some D2, D3, and D1 camps. The D1 offers aren't coming to you. Maybe the top D2s aren't coming to you. Maybe the Johns Hopkins of the world or Swarthmores of the world aren't coming to you. And so take the best offer that is on the table and prove everybody else wrong. Prove that you are an All-American, at that level. Then other opportunities, I can promise you, will be available to you at other levels once you're a proven commodity. But I don't blame coaches for being wary of an 18-year-old who's never stepped on a college field ever in their life and isn't playing for the national team and isn't even playing at the regional team level, um, and isn't you know an ECNL All-Star Game selected player. And I can understand that coach being wary of, do I want to recruit this unproven freshman or yacht? And please, so get over yourself. If you're not of those higher levels, you've maybe overestimated your abilities. Um, and if you haven't, then go prove yourself right and prove them wrong. And then keep those relationships open with those coach in a good way and come back to them later. Or maybe a new coach takes over at that school who, you know, appreciates what you bring to the table. That happens too.
Well, Dawn, this reminded me of an episode we did in the past on not being entitled. If you're on an ECNL team, just because you're on ECNL doesn't mean D1 schools will be knocking on your door. And I'm not talking about starters and national team players. I'm talking about girls who are on an ECNL team who are subs or they're in the middle of the pack. They might be like the 12th best player on the team. Don't just assume that you're going to do D1 for sure. I mean, you might prove yourself, but maybe a better level for you is a different division. And I've seen that too. And it is a hard conversation for a lot of girls, but when the ones who are open to it pursue these other divisions, they realize, like you said, wow, there's some great things at this school, and their eyes are more open, and they end up being happy at these other levels too. And then they're not chasing these schools that don't want them until their senior year, and then they're panicked and they haven't committed to anywhere. So you don't want to be in that situation for everyone listening. So yeah, I think this was a great discussion on just knowing yourself and trying different camps of different levels and seeing where you fit in. It's that simple.
Yeah, there's no doubt, Erica. And if people, there are ECNL historians that can tell you but ECNL started because it was the best players on one coming together from Las Vegas on one team. And then it
Mm-hmm.
was the same thing from San Francisco and every major metropolitan area in the country. It was the idea was we'll form a team of the best players from our area and they'll play. And I think it started out as the best 28 teams in the country, something like that. It was a fairly small number. So the more ECNL grows, the more the pool gets diluted. Now we have, three ECNL teams from one major metropolitan area. And and frankly, from that major metropolitan area, there might be three players on the GA team that could easily be on the best team in that area, but aren't. And then you've got two players that have decided, I don't want any of this coast to coast traveling from that area. I don't want it. So it's become more diluted than what it was. Not that it's not still the best women's platform in the country. It is, but it has become more diluted. So you're right. If you're on the, you know, 42nd best DCNL team in the country and you're the 15th best player on that roster and you're expecting to be recruited by Notre Dame, think about the hundreds and hundreds and hundreds and thousands of girls that are in front of you on that playground choosing sides roster. You're just chasing the wrong schools. And you're going to spend a lot of money and a lot of time and a lot of effort, a lot of energy, and become frustrated if you're not realistic. You can't even make your starting 11 on your 42nd best team in the country. Come on, wake up. ECNL does not mean D1. Everybody goes D1. Everybody gets a full ride because I'm on ECNL. And that's the dream of a lot of parents. I saw a poll the other day that was saying that most kids are playing, the majority of kids that took this poll say that they are playing for a college scholarship. That's why they're playing. I just think that's all wrong, Erica. I think we've got our priorities completely reversed for that 52%, whatever it was. So at least half the kids, if that poll's correct, and if it's a true representation, at least half the kids in this country are playing for an externally motivating factor that they can't control, by the way. So they're not playing for the love of the game, and they're not playing because they dig soccer so much they can't give it up. And that's where you become a better player. It's because everything is about that sport and you can't give it up. I mean, look at yourself. Here you are all these years later, and you're still involved in your sport. You couldn't give it up, at some level. And I'm the same way. I'm 62 and a half now. And, 50, 52, almost 53 years later, I couldn't give up my sport. I just can't. That's how much I love it. And that's when you become better at whatever you do.
Yeah.
That's when you become better. So something to think about.
Yeah. Yeah, we have it backwards. We're so focused on that external motivation, the scholarship, the end goal. But if our priority was just playing to develop and become a better teammate and learn the game and study the game, you get better that way first, and then that leads to the college success eventually. And yeah, I've been finding that a lot recently. And yeah, a lot of girls on like these ECNL teams who aren't really ranked high or playing a lot. I would argue, Don, that even the top D3 schools like Johns Hopkins and Emory and Swarthmore and William Smith and all these programs, they wouldn't even take some of these girls who are middle of the pack on their ECNL team.
Yeah, well, and the women's side, and to some extent the men's side, by the way, for parents that think, oh, well, I can always go to a Swarthmore. I can
Mhm.
always go to a Johns Hopkins. That's Division 3. That's the third best conference in this country. Don't understand, and I use you, honestly, when I talk to parents about this, I use you as an example that you were a actively recruited Division 1 athlete that chose a high-end academic school that was also good at soccer, but it wasn't like, it wasn't like you were in the delusion that they were going to be in North Carolina, right? But you were actively recruited and you made that choice and you're just one person. You don't think that there's other girls and boys around the country who are saying, uh, yeah, I'm going to forego a Division 1 experience for this high-end academic experience because really that is my main goal. It's the high-end academics. I'm looking past my college career already. I'm looking down the line. I'm looking long term. I'm in this for the long game of what does my academic career look like and what kind of a professional career does that lead to? And you're not the only one. There's thousands of those around the world. There's high level players in Japan right now that are thinking about coming to America and they open up the US News and World Report and they read the top academic schools in the country. And yes, Stanford's on the list and yes, Notre Dame's on the list and yes, you know, but also Johns Hopkins is on the list and MIT's on the list and Swarthmore's on the list, etc. So when you look at the U.S. News and Report, World Report top 100 schools in the country, yeah, and you realize that half of them are Division 3, they don't break out on those lists. They play Division 3 soccer or they play Division 1 soccer. Nobody cares. That's not what we're talking about. We're talking about the high-end academics and what that could lead to career-wise down the road. Those rosters are loaded with Division 1 kids. So don't think, oh, well, I'm not good enough to play Division 1 and maybe I'll play Division 3. Good luck. Good luck. Not going to work out that way. Or I'll only play Division, or I'll go play Division 2. Check out some of the top Division 2, top 10 Division 2 schools in the country, and you'll see that they easily could beat 50% of the Division 1 schools in the country.
And watch some of the games that they live stream online. I mean, you look at these other divisions and it's really high quality soccer. And I don't think people are doing their research on this. They're just like, "Oh, it's, D2 or D3. It's just my backup plan. It's my fallback, It's my safe school." But then
Right.
they watch these games where they go to an ID camp and their daughter's not standing out. She's not keeping up at a D3 school. And yes, it's highly competitive too.
Absolutely. No, that's a very, very good point. And I just don't people just don't listen. They don't listen. They hear what they've got their own biases in their own head, and they're not going to listen to anybody who tells them anything different. And then, I know a player who spent over $12,000 traveling from ID camp to ID camp to ID camp
Yeah, I know
and
a ton
wasn't
of
being
people.
recruited.
Yeah, I know a lot of people who do that.
And I said, you're because you're at the wrong level. Clearly, you're at the wrong level. You've gone all the way down to the middest of the mid majors, and they still don't want you. It doesn't mean you're not a good player, but it does mean you're not a fit for that level. So go down, prove yourself, and then move back up if you've proved yourself. It's not where you start, it's where you finish that counts. So you can start down lower and then finish at a higher level if you proved yourself.
Yeah. Don, the expense part of it's a whole other podcast. I'm actually considering having a financial person on my podcast. So, one of my friends from college messaged me on Facebook. She works in finance. And she said, Erica, you won't believe the stories I have of sports parents spending all this money on these ID camps to get their kids seen, and they don't have the money for it. She's telling me that people are repossessing their cars to pay for these camps, like crazy stuff. And I was like, I didn't even know this was going on. So I don't know if you've heard that, but just
No,
some
but
wacky stuff
man,
going on with what people are
if you want to
in debt.
co-guest on that podcast with her, I would love to ask questions too. That is
Oh,
crazy.
she
That's a
said
fascinating
people are
podcast.
dipping into 401ks, they're losing their cars. Like she sent me this whole Facebook message and I was like, I didn't even consider this side of it. Like I knew people were spending a lot of money, but not being like that irresponsible with it, all for the sake of getting seen at these ID camps.
That's crazy because when we post about this topic publicly on Facebook, on social media, and I've posted, I've done polls, and the polls range between 15 and 20,000. I've had a few parents that have said spent upwards of 30,000. But when you add it all up, right? So you're talking about what you do for a living and what I used to do for a living, private lessons. Well, you've got two things going on. You've got, I was a goalkeeper coach, so I had goalkeepers that 20 years ago were paying me, $100 an hour as a
Yeah,
goalkeeper coach.
that's
Then
crazy.
they were going to sports conditioning specialists like you, you
Mhm.
know, and then they're going to camps, and then they're going, they're traveling if they're, and I'll get some parents to go, "Oh, it's an exaggeration. My kid plays ECNL. I only spend 12,000 a year." I think, man, I think I was paying, first time I ever had to pay for my kid to be on a team, it was 25 bucks a month.
Mhm.
A long time ago. It was 20 years ago, but still 25 bucks a month. And now kid, paying $1,000 a month. I don't think they're even counting, when somebody said that, I don't think they're counting or realize, the travel. When I travel for a weekend, just myself to go see a tournament or event, even if it's just from Northern California here to Southern California, Erica, it's $1,000.
Oh
Hotel,
yeah, more.
and that's just me.
Yeah, like Ubers, eating out, when you really add it all up at the end, it's yeah, a couple thousand.
And most of these parents travel with their kids, not all of them, but most of them travel with their kids.
Yeah.
So you're talking about at least one parent. That's at least 2,000. And if you're going to 6 events a year, that alone is 12,000. And then if it's 12,000, 8,000 for club, and then all of the other things we talked about,
Yeah.
you
Don,
know.
look, there are families who can afford all this.
Yeah,
Like
yeah, it's
like
nothing
it's
to them.
like money can go down the drain and like they're fine. But when my friend messaged me, I realized, wait, there's actually people who are being irresponsible and going into debt over all of this. And I respect families so much that tell me, hey, like we know strength is important, but like we just can't afford. I'm like, that's fine. Like be responsible with your freaking family finances. So yeah, this is a whole other conversation, but this is actually a thing where people are dipping into 401ks and credit card debt. Like it's a thing. And then the ID camps aren't cheap, and then you're flying to an ID camp to another state, and then you got to pay for a hotel, and it's like, what is this all for? Like it's okay if your kid just plays locally and learns life lessons from sports too. I don't think people are talking about that either, except maybe me and my husband. We don't know if we're going to do travel sports because
Yeah, I honestly, looking back, had travel sports been what they were, my son would not have been involved in the travel sports world at all. We
that's
we
what, yeah,
really
we're
couldn't have
talking about that
afforded it.
too. We're like, I don't know if we can do this. Like,
And the
It's
funny
just
thing is, Erica, it's not. So we were at a tournament a number of years ago, and there was a girl, it was a low level tournament, and this girl played on a maybe the fifth best team out of the state of Utah. She wasn't very on a very good team, but she was very good. She was very special. She was different. She absolutely stood out and caught our eye immediately. We started working with her, and her family couldn't afford even to work with us. We worked out a deal. We caught her early enough, like beginning of her sophomore year, we let them pay like $100 a month till we got paid off. We connected her with a school, with a very, very good Division II school, and they paid for everything because she was going to start for them, and she did. Very, very good. Parlayed that into that school ended up dropping sports. Parlayed that into another school, and then parlayed that into a Division I program, and finished her last 2 years at a Division I program on a full ride. They couldn't afford anything. So school basically ended up costing her nothing, but they weren't spending the high end. At the tournament we saw her at, her parents couldn't afford to attend with her. They
mm,
had to send her and make arrangements with the team for her to basically sleep on the floor on the couch in a hotel room with other parents who could
wow.
afford the hotel room. So,
Hmm.
I mean, really couldn't afford it. So I guess the moral of the story is if you really can't afford it, but your kid really is special, there are ways around the system to get your kids in to the college system and then work their way up within the college system. And it doesn't have to cost you an arm and a leg if you really are. Not to mention,
Junior college too, Dawn, as a pathway.
oh,
Because junior
100% it's a
college is
pathway.
so cheap. It's
And I get
crazy.
these parents going, my kid is spent. My kid's taken all these AP classes and basically they're have enough to graduate from a junior college, in high school. And it's like, yeah, but you understand there are still other courses your kid could take that they'd be interested in, at least for one semester till they
Yeah.
can prove themselves. And it's like, oh, they worked too hard to go to a junior college. It's like, that's an elitist attitude. I don't like that attitude. I understand where you're coming from, but that's elitist. Your kid's too good for something.
Mhm.
It's if their goal is to play a sport and go to school at the same time, it's a legitimate pathway because if you're here's advice for your parents out there. So become an NCAA qualifier. Okay, that's the first rule. So you apply to the NCAA Eligibility Center, you get cleared, you've sent in your transcript, you've paid your NCAA Eligibility Center fees, you're a qualifier, you're a full qualifier. And you go to junior college, you can stay literally for your fall semester, play soccer, and then transfer. If you're not a qualifier, so if you go, well, I'll start out in junior college and you begin playing and you go, well, now I'll sign up for an NCAA Eligibility Center after you started playing in junior college, you're going to have to graduate with your AA degree. You're going to have to stay for 2 years at junior college. So do the NCAA qualifying before the junior college pathway goes. If you come out and you've torn it up and you're an All American and you're doing great your freshman year, you're playing way over your level, you can transfer after only one semester, even. So,
Mhm.
spring semester. So, what did you waste? 5 months of your life? And
Yeah.
now you get into the level you wanted to get into that wouldn't recruit you before because you've proven yourself? It's legit. Plus, it's cheap. Junior college is generally cheap. And by the way, if you're listening to this and you truly are in need, if you qualify for FAFSA and you really are a needy family, it's upwards of $20,000 per year that you will qualify for. So I know players that have gone to junior college and to even some state schools who are paying housing, tuition, food, and still are banking, walking around money.
Hmm.
They're banking it. I knew players that were banking about $5,000 per semester, banking 10 grand a year. If you're really in need, We've got a player like that, Zuli Diaz, who works with us now, does all of our film at SRUSA. But when I recruited her, her family didn't have diddly squat. She wasn't going to school till I recruited her. But we came in and threw the. I watched her play, and she was all conference as a striker 2 years in a row, and then all conference as a center back 2 years in a row. We were right. We invested well in her. She's a great player, but she got everything paid for. Walked out with zero debt and got to bank some money along the way. So for those that can't afford it, that we were talking about, there is a pathway.
Yep. Ways around the system for sure. We might have to do another episode on this, and I might have to bring my friend on in finance
That's what I
because
said. Look,
it's,
well, I'm happy to do a joint episode if you want to do it together
yeah.
with her, because I would have questions and I'd have stories because
Oh, there's
that's
stories. Yeah,
fascinating to
there's
know.
plenty of stories, but yeah, I think we'll do an episode. I've been trying to get a hold of her, but she also has kids in sports, the expensive ones, hockey and lacrosse.
Whew.
But yeah, I'll get her on and also dance, I think. That's a pretty crazy one, but they're all
Absolutely. Well,
expensive,
our daughter
so
did dance and she had to be more expensive than our son was because they were going to tournaments and
Mhm.
events in Palm Springs and
The
in Disneyland
costumes,
and
the
Southern
hair.
California and then
Yeah.
you've got all the costumes and
Hmm.
all of that and then you've got the
Yeah.
lessons and all of that. It's not cheap and I think it's gotten way worse and the hockey is the other one that
Yeah,
I've heard is
hockey.
unbelievable.
Oh yeah.
Oof.
Well, yeah, I made a note of that. I need to just get into her DMs again and get her on, and then
Okay,
I'll let you know, Dawn. But yeah,
let me know.
this was great, and yeah, a lot for the parents listening to think about. We hope this was helpful, and as Dawn said, please know thyself, and yeah, that's it's your own journey, and do what is best for your kid, go where they're wanted, and be responsible with your finances, which we'll go over on another time. So, thank you
Yeah.
guys, and I'll see you on the next episode.